Welcome to Policy on Demand. I'm Sindhu Bloom. There are global and domestic shifts throughout the business world, most notably in the realm of trade. As these issues evolve, Chairman Dave Camp had the opportunity to speak with former U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer at PwC's Customs and International Trade Forum in Dallas. Ambassador Lighthizer was the U.S. Trade Representative under the first Trump administration, where he led USMCA negotiations at the Phase 1 deal with China and a range of tariff policies aimed at leveling the playing field for U.S. businesses. His involvement in trade issues goes back to the Reagan administration, where he served as Deputy U.S. Trade Representative. We hope you find this conversation insightful.
Ambassador Lighthizer, welcome to Policy on Demand.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Well, there's been a lot of discussion about this fair and reciprocal trade plan and the America First trade policy. Those are going to be released in a few days. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind ourselves that the current trading system over the last at least 3 decades has failed America, failed our workers. And I think we have to start with that proposition. I won't go through the data points, but it's pretty clear that it has. We need a change. And in large part, or at least a significant part, President Trump got elected on this issue. And I think he's going to see it through. So what do I think is going to happen coming up on April? I think you're going to see not the end of the process, but the beginning. The reality is there's not like one deal or one thing you can do that's going to solve a very complicated issue. There's a lot of moving parts. There's hundreds of countries involved, thousands and thousands of products, and there's thousands and thousands of trade barriers and subsidies and the like. So this is going to be a moving process. I think April 2nd is in some way day one, and I think over the course of literally the next years, you're going to see this evolve to the point where the United States and hopefully other parts of the world move in the direction of balanced trade, which in the long run will add to global efficiency throughout the world and sort of a more sensible allocation of resources among nations and among people within the nations.
So as companies try to navigate this evolving trade policy, what advice do you have for them in the short, medium, and long term?
Well, I appreciate the fact that it is difficult to live in a time of change. I like to emphasize, though, that it's also the time that makes the great people great, right? I mean, it's if you're sitting there in a staid time, not doing anything but clipping coupons, you're never going to be in the Hall of Fame. So I think you're going to find a lot of business women and men who figure it out. Now, clearly, you're going to need flexibility. To the extent you depend on certainty, you're going to get more certainty in the United States than you are in other places. It's going to lead to a better country, and that's going to redound to the benefit of the workers in a lot of these companies. But it's going to require some nimbleness and some far thinking, depending on the industry or the sector. But clearly, flexibility, moving things to the extent that makes sense to America, are going to be important parts of it. But in the long run, these businesses are all going to benefit, no matter what sector they're in, from a policy that is fairer, more balanced, and for sure their workers are, and that'll make that helps the companies too.
If you were to look at trade policy a year from now, what would the landscape look like? And would there be tariffs on certain countries and not others that you might foresee?
My view is that we have long-term imbalances that are caused not just by tariffs, but by industrial policy in other countries. They are what we would have called 100 years ago beggar thy neighbor policies, right? We've all heard that term from when we were young. And these are complicated policies, and they're not going to change in the short run. So you're going to have tariffs to offset this basic unfairness, not just the differences in tariffs, but the differences in industrial policy. So I think you're going to see this kind of an offset for a long period of time. And as I say, I think it actually makes the global economy more efficient and the distribution of wealth better. So to me, it's not a negative thing at all that we have tariffs for a long period of time, and to offset unfairness. and ultimately balance.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David.